We'll go on and we'll just talk and get it going. So are you ready, Jeff?
So did you know, I've got to just ask a couple of questions, I'm sorry. So did you know Duke Crittenden?
Yes, I did.
What a character.
Yes, guy.
A character.
Duke was a one-of-a-kind guy. You're right, absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, he was, he once offered to put my daughter through UF. But fortunately she went to UF and she got a scholarship anyway, so she didn't need to. But he was, we'd had a couple of drinks at the time, as Duke was wont to do.
Yeah, he moved very nicely in two different worlds, somebody that could move in the agricultural world, and then he also knew the political arena very well.
Yes, he did.
We underway?
Underway. Okay, so.
Right, Mark. We're going to do an interview, and the first thing we have to do is make sure they know who we are. So we look at the camera and we say, my name is John Jackson, John Jackson, and this is my friend
Marc Craen, Marc Craen, Marc Craen.
All right, we're off and running. We could spend a lot of time talking about you, but we're not going to talk about you today.
Nothing interesting about me.
No. We're going to talk a little bit about our friend Gilbert Bowen. Gilbert has been elected and will be inducted into the Citrus Hall of Fame. Tell me a little bit, how did you meet Gilbert Bowen?
I met Gilbert Bowen in 1996, and he became a mentor to me in the citrus industry. I was relatively new to the industry, and he became a mentor who taught me all about the varieties, the rootstocks, the diseases. And most importantly, he taught me about how the industry can overcome all of the things that have affected it if we just work at it and continue working at it.
Now, was he purchasing fruit for you, or were you getting fruit from him? What was your arrangement?
Well, we bought some fruit from him, and a little later down the road, he actually became our banker. He loaned us the seed money to start a processing facility.
This is interesting because my contact with people who've talked with Gilbert is that even though he was probably the largest cash fruit buyer, known as a bird dog, in the industry, he was involved in a lot of other activities besides just buying fruit. So tell us, you knew Gilbert very well. What were some of the qualities that stood out to you?
So Gilbert was an incredibly generous man, just generous of spirit, generous with his success as well. He traveled extensively to learn about the industry at a time when many people barely left the county, certainly not the state. He was traveling around the world to learn about citrus, and he would come back and share what he had learned with anyone that wanted to listen to him. And I found that generosity just incredible, that he would spend his time, his energy, finding out stuff and passing it on to other people.
Exactly. And my limited contact and what I found out, and this is true, people don't realize the far-reaching impact that the citrus industry has, but Gilbert was involved in so many benevolent things. The FFA retreat there in Polk County, and Lord knows how many people he helped by, like you, providing some seed money and helping them along the way. And Gilbert was so modest. He said, I was just lucky. My brother and I got in this thing. I was just lucky. Well, Gilbert obviously was more than lucky. He was a generous, but he was a very good fruit man.
Great businessman.
He knew how to operate. And we were commenting on how things had changed, and most all of his contracts were worth a handshake, and he was of that old school that if he gave you his word, you didn't need a contract, you didn't need attorneys, it was done.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true.
We were talking, he said, I could call like Spasco up and tell them I needed $1 million, and they said, you want to come pick up the check or you want to mail it to you? And nothing else was involved.
I actually sat in a bank with him where he withdrew $1 million. Mm-hmm. And for me at the time, it was mind blowing to watch that, and the ease and the modesty that he had. He was an incredibly successful man. Bowen Brothers was the largest harvester in the state, but he was modest throughout his life. But the profound impact that he had on so many people in the citrus industry and in agriculture in general is you can't understate it. But the piece that you talked about, where he loaned money to people to help them, he was loaning money to people at a time when formal institutions would never loan money to those people. But he was willing to take that risk and help them. And I remember so many times going to lunch at Christie's Sundown Restaurant in Winter Haven with Gilbert, and it would take 10 minutes for him to get from the door to the table, because people would stand up and shake his hand, and most of them would be saying thank you.
Yes, the man had huge impact, and never was looking for any kind of acknowledgement or recognition or anything
Not
else.
at all.
Just and one of my favorite passages in the Bible is when Jesus asked Peter, "Do you love me?" And Peter said, "Yes." And then Jesus said, "Feed my sheep, tend my flock." That's Gilbert. Gilbert was tending the flock, not worrying about him. He was always putting other people first, and that's I think that speaks just volumes of the gentleman. And I wish I'd had more impact with him, but just the brief time that I've known him and talked to him and interviewed people that were involved with him, the guy was just an icon.
He really was. I remember one time Gilbert coming to, we had planned a day out in the Groves, and he came to pick me up, and he'd come straight from a dealership, and he'd bought a brand new truck. It's brand new. Picked me up, and we're driving to the Grove, and we get into the Grove, and the very tight set trees, and he just turned the truck into those groves, and I watched as the limbs were scratching the side of the truck. It was brand new, hours old. And he looked at me and said, "Got to get it over with on the first day."
Yeah, that, to diverse a little bit, the story very similar to that is that I had some graduate students down, and they were visiting a local nurseryman over in Lake County, and she said, "Well, let's go look at the groves." And so they got in her big gold Cadillac, and she took off. The same thing, down there, the limbs slapping the car. "Oh, Miss Blanton, you don't need to do that." She said, "These trees paid for this car. They can see it anytime they want to."
I was once with him, and we took out the buyer from a national hotel chain who had come to Florida to learn about oranges and about citrus. And we spent the day with Gilbert at a packing house, at a processing facility, and so forth, and out in the groves. And again, we were in this beautiful truck that Gilbert was driving, and we drove into the groves, and the buyer from this hotel chain could not believe what was happening. And Gilbert opened the sunroof and was picking fruit through the sunroof, and it was the look on this man's face was incredible.
Well, we could talk for a long time about Gilbert, but I think that probably we've already mentioned that Gilbert was generous, Gilbert was humble, and Gilbert was someone that would literally give you the shirt off of his back. So thank you, Mark.
Not at all. I want to say one last thing about Gilbert that seems to get missed sometimes. Yeah. He had the most wonderful sense of humor and a smile that just lit up the room. When you were whether you were in a business meeting or in a social function, he had a smile that was just incredible.
That opens a lot of doors, doesn't it?
It does. It does indeed.
And and the thing is, you can't hide something like that. There are smiles that are, but there's ones that just kind of envelop you and say, "Hey, I'm here," and that was built, and to be able to focus with you and give you the idea that you were important and I'm here to help you.
That was Gilbert. He even took me under his wing, and I'm obviously not from Florida, but he overlooked that, and he still treated me just as if I'd been born. I was a cracker.
He saw something down there that was worthwhile.
Well, we hope so. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Is that good?
Right there.